in the event of a pandemic. So there could even be meningitis viruses causing damage to the brain in these vaccines.
Dobro, kod raznih istraživača se mogu naći razne kombinacije, razne mogućnosti šta je sve umiješano. Vratimo se na tužbu FBI-u protiv određene skupine ljudi, institucija. Ljudi unutra naizgled se čine ne toliko povezani kad čitamo novine. Barack Obama je naravno predsjednik, David Nabarro je sistemski koordinator za gripu, Margaret Chan je generalna direktorica Svjetske zdravstvene organizacije, Kathleen Sebelius je ministrica zdravstva, Janet Napolitano je ministrica domovinske sigurnosti, naravno Rothschild je bankar, David Rockefeller također je bankar. Ta grupa ljudi koja djeluje organizirano, očito je ovdje pravo mjesto da se upotrebi jedna riječ koja se često, nažalost, izgubila u različitim čudnovatim pričama, to je riječ urota. Mislite li da ovi ljudi djeluju sinkronizirano, da su dio neke šire urote i ako da, koje? S obzirom da očito ne smjera taj plan ništa dobro čovječanstvu ako je suditi po svinjskoj gripi.
Yes, I sure believe that these people have been working in a coordinated and synchronized way to trigger a pandemic and then declare a pandemic emergency. This is whose role. And then to implement these forced vaccination programs. And they have done this at a point in time when we're facing one of the biggest economic crises for decades. And this has been artificially engineered by banks in order to increase their share of power and money or whatever. And the same banks which have engineered this crisis or have played a key role in it are also financiers of the pharma companies, and central or key families like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are involved not only in the banks and the pharma companies, they also play leading roles in governments like J. Rockefeller, who passed Senate Bill 666 in 2003, which channeled money from the US government into developing bioweapons by private companies. And they also, the Rockefellers, have funded and donated land and sums of money to the UN. And the Rothschilds have given substantial sums of money to the World Health Organization. So if we look a little bit behind the surface, we can see these people are very much connected, and they are all moving together to accomplish the same agenda, which is to rob people through this economic crisis and then murder them through this forced vaccination program, in my view.
Koji bi bio krajnji cilj djelovanja te skupine ljudi koju nekad zovu iluminatima, nekad ih se poistovjećuje s nekim skupinama koji su stvari samo dio šire mreže, kao što je recimo grupa Bilderberg i slično? Koji je njihov krajnji cilj? Novca očito imaju već puno. Kontrole, naravno kontrole nikad dosta, ali i nje imaju dosta. Vaše osobno mišljenje koje ne mora biti potkrepljeno nekakvim podacima. O čemu se tu radi?
Well, if you look at what is happening at the moment, you have to conclude that their aim is to set up a one world government. Because if a pandemic emergency is declared, the World Health Organization can take control of every single government within Europe and the USA, 194 governments or countries, I think. It takes control of the health services, of the police and the military. And this means that the structure has been created basically for a one world government. At the same time, we see the UN, through the Copenhagen Treaty, is taking control of people's economy under the pretext of fighting global warming and having to control carbon emissions. They have acquired enormous power over every single economy. So if you put the UN and the World Health Organization together, you have a one world government with two arms operating. Interestingly enough, this making the World Health Organization a global health department was discussed at the Bilderberg meeting in Athens this year by Carl Bildt, the ex-Prime Minister of Sweden. So we have witnesses who have heard that these very powerful people meeting in secret are thinking along the lines of turning the World Health Organization into this huge global overreaching body controlling countries around the world.
S obzirom na razmjere ovih događaja o kojima pričamo, jesu li pretjerane tvrdnje da je moguće u cjepiva, poput ovog koje se namjerava napraviti obaveznim, staviti nekakve vrsti mikročipova i slično, s obzirom da oni danas već mogu biti doista vrlo mali? I ako da će biti mikročipovi trebali služiti, s obzirom da se i o tome može naći podataka kad se prati priča o svinjskoj gripi?
Well, incredible as it sounds, there is hard evidence that these vaccines could contain a microchip. I understand one of the major microchip manufacturers, Verichip, has got contracts with all of the 5 big pharma companies. These microchips are believed to be going to be in the government controlled syringes. You can't use, or doctors or hospitals can't use just any syringe for this swine flu. They have to use special syringes supplied by the government, and these syringes have a certain batch number, and when somebody is given a vaccine with this batch number, it is linked to their social security number and put into a huge database, and this database has been built up by the World Health Organization now for the past 2-3 years, and the basis of the database has been the information on people's health or social security and health records in every single country. So there's plenty of credible evidence that there is going to be a microchip in the vaccines. And the odd thing about this pandemic is that every single government, including the US government, has said it wants to vaccinate 100% of the population. And this is a goal stated in every single country's pandemic plans. And it's very difficult to understand why they want 100% coverage unless they intend to get this nanochip into everybody. If they get the nanochip into everybody, they can, in theory, I think, track and control everybody who's alive in Europe and the USA or whoever has taken this vaccination and keep them under control.
Možda čak i utjecati na njihovo raspoloženje, mentalno stanje, s obzirom da čip radi dvosmjerno.
That's, as far as I understand, is the case. Somebody I spoke to had discussed this with a biophysicist, and they said that if we have toxic metals or heavy metals like mercury and aluminium in our body, that these interact with electromagnetic waves, and if somebody beams electromagnetic waves with certain frequency at us, they can stimulate certain emotions, depression, anxiety, aggression, joy, or whatever, but they need a sort of, a beamer to target these waves too. And this would be, for example, the nanochip. That would be one way these people could use the nanochip to induce in individuals or even in whole peoples mass hysteria, mass anger, aggression, whatever emotion they wished, using this interaction of all these elements.
Prije svega mislimo na one sretnike koji će preživjeti cjepivo, zar ne?
That's right. I mean, I think they themselves are not quite sure how many people they are going to be able to kill with this vaccine. I think that they are particularly targeting children, and they are targeting particularly women who are expecting children. The vaccine has not been tested on these two groups. There is no clinical data on them. The clinical trials on pregnant women began last month only in September, and they're not due to be finished till 2010. And the trials on children also only began last September and are not due to be finished until long after the vaccination is completed. And I believe this is because they know very well that these are especially dangerous vaccines for children and for pregnant women. So I think they're aiming to damage and destroy the next generation very significantly through these vaccinations. And then a lot of people will have autoimmune diseases or reactions months after getting these vaccines, even if they don't drop dead immediately, as the US and UK soldiers did. Others will drop dead immediately. And by vaccinating people, there's also the option of putting in a live virus, like a live bird flu virus.